Yeah.
I think it's helpful because
Keep
go
going,
ahead.
hon.
Well,
All
no,
right, ladies, we're here. Okay. Go.
yeah. No, I was gonna say it's so easy. So a week ago, I was telling my friend, well, sometimes no answer's an answer. If they're gonna ghost you and gaslight you and love bomb you and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're the bad guy and they hate you, from an outside perspective, I would tell my closest girlfriend, hey, get out of that. That's not good. That isn't love. If you love a person, you don't treat a person like poo. And then I started doing it to myself. Oh, it matters to everybody but me. I'm exempt. Why
Yeah.
do we do that? And it's
Ugh,
so bad,
it's hard.
and we think,
Go
yeah,
for
go
it.
ahead.
What were you going to say, hon?
I was gonna say, I think that as empaths, we think that we have this like miraculous, magical cure within us. We'll fix them. They're our project husband or wife. They show you their signs early on.
They
Truly
do.
do. I always say the red flags are there. It's just whether or not we want to see them.
And we see
Sometimes,
them, but
yeah.
later, you
Or
know?
we see them and don't want to acknowledge them for what they are. We think we can make them pink and
Yeah.
make them white. And that is not how that works.
Right.
And it scares me because how often I was talking to a guy. He, I think he said 13 years he was in an abusive relationship where she would punch him and hit him and stuff, but never on his face so anybody could see. I feel like narcissists, some of them are very overtly aware. They know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
But he put up with it because he's like, oh, but there's kids. I'm like, that is the worst thing. You're teaching them that that's an acceptable form of love, and that is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, why did we put up with that? And I think it stems back. So I have a friend who taught me about the five whys. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
Okay.
You start with whatever is, well, okay. So I'll just say, okay, why does this person treat me like crap? This is my issue. Well, I thought that he loved me. Well, what made you think that? And you keep going down, and what kind of a trigger it is. Well, he love bombed me. He showed so much love and concern and give me gifts and all this attention in the beginning. Okay. What does that mean for you? What did that do for you? Well, it made me feel love. Why? Because I didn't get love as a child. Oh, and it's usually about layer 5 to 7. You keep going down. It stems from something that we missed or had happened to us and didn't get as a child.
Mm-hmm. It always does. Honestly, when I'm talking to my clients and I'm like, how do you know? How do you know? Well, you're like, I don't know. I just know. But then if you kind of go back and think about it, you've got the other thing I asked is like, kind of go back and when was like one of the first memories you have feeling this way? You know, one person, a client, was left at a bus stop in kindergarten. And it didn't put two and two together until he's like, why do I feel like if I have no control, everything's going to spiral down? Why do I feel that way? Why do I feel like I need to be loved this way because I wasn't loved as a child this way? We don't, in neuroplasticity and in mindset consulting, what I do, we don't want to know why. We want to know how you're coding it in your brain. We want to know what happened to make you feel this way and how can we make you unfeel this way. And then once you kind of fix some things back then in the past, because when you think about memory, memory is, I don't know if I've probably said this many times, but memory is extreme emotion, either happy or sad, and it's your nervous system pushing record, your
Right.
mind, your brain pushing record. So you're not going to remember everything. You're going to remember when you were happy, when you were sad, when you were left at a bus stop, and you had no control. And so that your body generalizes it out and it makes everything like if your dad didn't love you the way you wanted him to love you, it's just going to sit there and it's going to just as you're growing, like you're 10, you're 11, you're 12, and it's just going to kind of go out and out and out until all of a sudden you're in this position to where you're like, I just want to fix them because with me they're not, their past relationship she cheated on him, so as what maybe they said, but I'm not going to cheat on him. So eventually he'll stop acting the way he's acting. No,
No.
because I want the love that I want. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think that's a big thing, and being cognizant of what your triggers are. That's a hard
Mhm.
one, not knowing until sometimes we're in the throes of it. You know, it may sound great, and I can counsel somebody else seeing it in an outside perspective, but you've got to be so self-aware that you're like,
Mhm.
whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, this new relationship that I just recently had and ended, I didn't even want to deal. He had gaslighted me, ignored me for 4 days when he was the one who had oral surgery, so I didn't make him talk. And then he said I was putting him on the back burner and didn't talk to me even through Mother's Day. I was like, peace. That's your sign right there. He was going to do that. And that's your A game. And this is only 4 weeks in. Bye.
Yeah.
You know? But had I not just given that advice to somebody else, I don't think I would have seen it. I probably would have gone weeks more and been
Because
like,
we,
oh, it's okay. He wasn't feeling well. He had oral surgery. No, we all live on our phone. You can take 2.5 seconds to see how somebody's doing. And if they can't reciprocate, then move on. You know, and I had a friend get mad at me one day. I said, you know, middle-aged single fathers in the state we live in are dime a dozen. And he got so upset. I'm like, it's not some huge, unique thing. I'll find somebody who meets that, but I'll find somebody who meets that without an agenda,
yeah.
without hidden altercations and reasons for doing things. You shouldn't ever have an agenda. And I always tell women, you know, as I'm restarting this, well, not restarting, we're rebranding a women's all-in-one resource shelter.
Mhm.
I always tell them, trust your gut. Somebody somewhere, the universe, your angels, whatever is telling you, it is screaming at you. You've got to pay attention to these things. And if you don't, then that's your own fault for putting yourself in that position, because those things don't come lightly. It's not like a feather in the wind. Oh, maybe I should have listened to that. It is a why do I not feel well? So for example, I had quit a job at a community college and was going to go work my dream job doing wedding and event planning at a venue. And it just was so great. And he was going to give me office space in return for bringing in business and all this stuff. And I was pouring in money and my office and time and business. And when I found out, I got a phone call. Did you know so and so had their venue shut down by gunpoint by the police? No? What? And I didn't know, and I almost got caught in this ring. He was selling drugs and alcohol to minors.
Oh,
And he was telling us to be hush about everything that happens there. I'm like, you're doing what's right. You shouldn't ever have to. But then what's interesting is he gaslighted us. No, that didn't happen. It was on the news, sure did.
yeah.
And there were 9 police cars. Anyway, then turned it on us. And this is the interesting part, that a lot of times I feel like women of constant abuse, no matter what it be, physical, verbal, you know, mental, it happens and it's so slight, it's so easy to dismiss. And he's like, no, you're giving up on me.
Yes. Ah.
You're illegal. You should be in prison. You sold drugs to minors. That's a $2,500 offense per person and 4 years of jail per person. And you want me to hide it?
You're giving up on me. They get into that the the mother instinct of each female. And there is a difference between males and females. Sorry, there is a difference,
There
right?
is a stark difference.
Males are supposed to be protective. They're supposed to protect their family and you know, and women are the loving source, you know, and kids, even though they don't understand this, but when someone gets hurt, they go to their mother because they feel those endorphins from their mother. When they want protection or to play, they go to their father, but their mother is the protective. So when he says, you're not giving up, you're giving up on me, and it gets into you and you're like, wait, no, I don't want to give up on you because that's just the kind of person. So man,
Isn't that crazy?
what was your reaction?
I was like, yep, I did. Still not coming back. I left $2,000 in my own personal wedding products there because I could not set foot back. But what's interesting, going back to the gut instinct,
Mm-hmm.
is that I'm one who can multitask like no other. I can be having 4 conversations on a chat while talking to somebody and still keep them all intact.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a female brain. That's how we worked. The second he would come around physically in front of me, I would fumble over stupid words like dog and cat, and I couldn't talk. And I was like, uh, the thing. And they're like, a car? I'm like, yes, that's it. My brain would literally shut down as a protective mode for chronic PTSD, which is a thing. People don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that. But when you've been so traumatized, your brain goes into this mode to protect you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't paying attention. And I had done it for 3 months. And then I was like, oh my gosh, my body's warning itself.
Yeah.
The second I left there, my clarity came back. Not even kidding.
That's
I
crazy.
couldn't.
It's your head brain. The vagus nerve connects your head brain to your heart brain to your gut brain. So your gut is a brain and it was telling you something. Yeah, you have to listen to your gut.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was
And I think that's the sad thing is hi baby, how many of us think, I don't know, we want to dismiss it because we don't think with all of it together as a whole, and women try to separate those sometimes. Oh,
yeah.
I need to be more logical. There's a reason God gave us this heart. It's an amazing thing. Mother's intuition is so strong. I've heard so many scholars and scientists say, had it not been for my mother, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
Because men don't listen to that.
Mm-mm.
And so why do we doubt ourselves? And there's a book by a psychologist named Gail Salz. And the book is called, I want to say it's called The Story We Tell Ourselves.
Okay.
It's so interesting. As a child, we don't want to take our parents off the pedestal that we have them on because that's who we model everything after. They're our idols for so much of our life. And if we take them down, what are we left with? Who do we follow? But rather, this is the interesting thing, rather than blame our parents for the harm that they caused us, purposely or not, we blame ourselves. We
Yeah.
demonize ourselves, we terrorize ourselves, we blame ourselves. But how could you have known? You didn't have the brain, you didn't have the experience. They're the parent for a reason. And it's usually not until we're their age that we look back and say, oh, that probably
Yeah.
wasn't the best way to do things. You
But then to them, everyone, all of our perspectives are different. I can't step into your shoes because I'm taking all of my years with me, right? If I were a blank slate and I were with you from the time you were born until now, I would probably do the exact same thing you did, right? So your parents, they're only as good as what was taught to them. And back then, what was taught to their parents. So we can never, no one can ever know what someone else is truly feeling. Can never know because we're
Right.
taking our own mindset, our own feelings, and bringing it into them. So with if we can jump to what you are now doing,
Yeah.
and kind of what I want to do along the sides of kind of what I'm doing is trying to, this is going to be weird, but I've heard like ancestral healing is more like stopping the pattern and creating a whole different one. So what we want to do, what like what I want to ask you about is stopping those patterns of abuse, those
Mm-hmm.
narcissistic patterns, because if you look back, and I was just telling someone the other day, I'm not going to name a race, but if you look back and you look at a certain race, the women are coddling their boys in particular because they never got that love from their husbands. So they're training their boys to treat the women, their women, the way that they were treated. So it's if you coddle your sons, you're creating another narcissistic generation. But they
Yeah.
needed that love because they never got it from their husbands that were already created from the mothers before them, from the mothers before them. So if we can stop that generation right now and train these women how to live, how to treat their children, then their children can treat the next generation. So if you can talk to us a little bit about like what your thoughts are on just traumatic experiences women are having.
Yeah. So, I mean, coming from my own perspective, I'll speak from that first. So, I had the craziest mix of parents. My dad was from Canton, China, mainland communist, and then my mom is German. So, like, so unloving. Like, I've never seen my parents be affectionate or hug or any of that. But I was very aware of things as a child. And I feel like that was my gift from the universe, is to be aware of how they treated each other. And I remember they would tear each other apart and say horrible things. And I would make a mental note to myself, I'm never doing that. Just don't
Mhm.
talk. Just hold it. It's
Yeah.
better than to say something damaging. And I think it goes back to that self-awareness. A lot of times we don't want to be the villain, but we also don't want to be the victim. Empaths want to be strong but soft and kind at the same time. It's a very awful paradox. And some women I've seen, they want to be loved, like you talked about, and they want to give the love, but they don't know how. And so if you're not mindful, so like with my own children, the first time I got divorced, my children were 4, 3, and 1, very little. We'd only been married 5 years. And after a traumatic event, my kids screaming and banging on the door, I said, you know what? No more, because those kids deserve to see their mom be happy. And I don't want them growing up thinking that this is love. How many times did you hear, oh, he just hit you because he liked you, little kids? And I'm like, no, that's not a thing. Oh, sorry.
That's not a
That's
thing.
not a thing. That's not acceptable. We don't hit people when we like them. No, we love them. We hug them. We share with them. And so you have to have in place and instead.
Mhm.
If you know that it's wrong, that's great. But if you don't have an alternative to replace it with, what good does that do?
Yeah.
And so it's being aware, like, I know this is not right. And so it was kind of cute. My dad was always working. And it was interesting. I thought that I was so happy to be like my dad, and I was a daddy's girl and stuff. And then I came to find out as I approached, I think I was like 35. Oh, he's the reason that I choose these men. I didn't
Mhm.
realize how berating, how chauvinistic, how verbally abusive my dad was, because that's how he had grown up and that's how they treated women in that culture. And so I just took it as something that, oh, he's just a grumpy Chinese man. You know, I stopped right then as I almost went to say it. And I was like, nope, I'm going to shut up. I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to replace it with, you know what? We don't do that. That's
Mm-mm.
not how we show love, and people make fun of Disney, but, I go back to Bambi. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything. Just
Yeah.
hold it. There's a reason we have these adages and sayings and stuff. And I would teach my girls, I mean, they're probably so sick of the lessons that I give them. We call it moments. But
Mhm.
I'm like, this is a moment. And they're like, oh, great, here it comes. And I'm just like, okay, what could you have done instead? And you really have to think about the whole situation. Then you're like, oh, yeah, maybe there was a different way of handling that, and stopping before you get to that point and lashing out.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And it's very hard to say, sometimes we're our own worst demon. We are the ones who obstruct our own paths to happiness. by our own choices. But you really have to be like in that moment as fast as you can. Is this the best choice? Is there another choice? What can I do that might be better? Move on and give yourself grace. I think that's the other thing I hate is how much women in domestic violence will beat themselves up.
Because it's their fault.
Yeah.
I,
And that's
I put my
automatic
kids through this.
programming.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm on year what, 14 as a single mom. And I look back and I used to, not as much, I would just be like, oh my gosh, I messed up my kids and they're gonna hate me and all this stuff. And I'm like, and like you said before, you did the best with what you knew at the time.
Mhm.
And there, again, another movie that says, when you know better, do better. See a
Yeah.
need, fill a need. Okay, so do it different next time. You're aware of it now. And like you said, because of the emotion that it ties to, it stands out as an unpleasant feeling. You're going to make that in the forefront of your mind. I'm never going to do that again.
Mm-mm. Yep.
And once you catalog that and put it away, when your brain recognizes it, it's going to be like, oh, stop. We've seen this before.
We're gonna go
What
this way now.
And it's scary because there are not manuals for this. We're writing it as we go. And we just have to, I was telling somebody it's a journal. You can call it whatever you want, call it life mapping, whatever, but you just have to be aware. But when you can go and have that introspection and be like, huh, have I done this before? Why did I do this before? And do those whys. It's so interesting how many times we do that to ourselves and then we're like, oh, and that epiphany comes. But I think it goes back to the grace. You're still human. It's okay to
Yep.
make a mistake. It doesn't mean you're bad. It's just a mistake.
There's always tomorrow. Change it. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what we've been speaking about, what you and your business partner are doing?
Hmm. So I am moving in with my friend. It's kind of a weird circle of events. I started out that I was just a state approved daycare watching her kids, and we were talking, and I love the mission. She's going through a very hectic divorce with a narcissist, male type 1. There's 5 different male narcissists. If people don't know, you can look it up online. Um, and she would reach out to me because she has no family, literally no family she could reach out to. And I love her babies like my own. And she's like, I really want to help other women because this is so hard. And I'm like, why not? And she's like, what? I'm like, why don't we? So we are actually doing an all-in-one. It's like a nonstop shop, one-stop shop, I should say, where we will help relocate women, we'll help improve their credit, get them into their own house and cars. A lot of times here in Utah, in a very patriarchal society, they're stay-at-home moms who have not had job experience and feel almost condemned to their house because they don't feel like they can have those skills on paper. And I'm like, oh, honey, that's like 5 jobs in one as a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
You got to write it down. You got to figure it out. And then we get them set up with networking, healing the trauma, overcoming the abuse, and on to the path. And then what's cool is we take that training and it's kind of like a mentor system where after so many months or so, they will go and they will train the newbies coming in.
Mm-hmm.
It perpetuates this movement for the better. We're not here bashing men. That's not going to do any good. We're healing ourselves. The focus is on ourselves. And then at the same time, we're building this beautiful vision and community. But it goes back to that healing of where do we start?
Yeah.
You know? And that's why we are collaborating and having this networking of women who were always taught to be submissive and subdued and quiet and hide. And with men, I was one of those who I would do all the work and let my husband get the credit, and I thought that was being a good supportive housewife. Not okay.
We're
You
just
did the
doing
work.
everything and not asking for help because, I either need to prove that I'm superwoman or, I could do everything. But then you
Right.
can't. You
And learn,
shouldn't.
yeah, go ahead. You
No, I was
shouldn't.
just gonna say you shouldn't feel that you have to do everything. It's not that you can't. Most anyone can do everything that they put their minds to, right? But why? How could you have
And why
a
would you want to? What does that tell you, to suffer in silence? You know, there, my dad has this, I don't know where he got it, a very skewed way of thinking. Before my mom passed away, my mom was a narcissist, a female narcissist, which females are very different from male narcissists and how they are. But what was weird is that he honestly believed that if he put up with her for the rest of his life and her abuse and her antics, he'd go to heaven.
Oh, okay.
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 And some otherwise. And that's just how he was brought up, and it's ingrained in his brain. Almost like a paying for penance kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
But I wonder how many other people think, oh, if I just deal with this or endure or, continue to put up with it, I'll be blessed later. Well, why can't you be happy and be blessed now?
Oh.
Put in and
Hmm.
I think that's the thing we have to look in. What makes us think that? And go back into those whys. What am I getting out of this? What makes me happy? You don't need to be a martyr. Nowhere does it say you need to sacrifice your happiness to the cause.
No.
We're not Joan of Arc. It was already done. But I think that's the thing, is it's okay also to be a strong woman and take pride in it. I don't think we give enough credit to strong women. I feel like there's a movement, the society is taking more attention and awareness to the women who've done things. My little 10-year-old was like, Mom, what does it mean to Rosa Parks somebody? I'm like, what?
What?
I didn't know. This is a lingo thing. Did you know this? Okay.
Mm-mm.
So when you're standing up to somebody and you won't back down, they're saying that's a Rosa Parks.
Oh.
I'm like, heck yeah. Do you want to know what that means? And it was a good little teaching lesson. She's like, I had no idea. I'm like, yeah. She stood her ground and went to jail for a cause she believed in and wouldn't back down. And you need to be strong. And she's like, but what if they don't like me? So what? And we care way too much in our society about what other people think. We've got to get a thicker skin.
We
And I
do.
think if we can teach that, and it's okay to pour it into somebody else's cup as long as you're pouring into your own.
Right. Right. And with everyone's different perspective, not everyone's gonna like you.
No, that's okay.
That's
I liken it to my kids. I did this little thing with little different kinds of teacups and champagne cups and stuff. And I poured different colors. I think it was just like soda and water and juice. And I'm like, okay, pick your favorite. And they're like, well, I don't know which one's my favorite. Well, look at the cup. Well, that doesn't mean it. Maybe I like the cup, but I don't like what's inside. I'm like, oh,
mm,
okay.
that's
Maybe we need to
good.
get to know. Isn't that amazing? Maybe we
Yeah.
need to get to know what's inside before we decide if we like it or not. And they're like, oh, because maybe it's pretty on the outside and I have this beautiful rose porcelain cup, and maybe it was vinegar.
Yeah. On the inside. Ew.
You can take time and get to know and not just look at it. And it just was like, to see these light bulbs go off was amazing. We weren't taught that. I mean, now does that mean that we don't take into consideration, we categorize, our brains group according to schema. We chunk things
Hmm.
as we take in information. Do I feel safe? Do I like them? How do I feel around them? What do they make me feel and see and hear and touch? And that's a way of coding as selectiveness, not only for mates, but for danger. That
Yes.
is okay. But that's why we do dating, is to get to know one step further. Okay, they got all these levels on step one. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper. And I tease my girls. I have 4 girls, and I always tease them. I'm like, okay, Shrek, because there's a part in there where he says, I'm an onion. I have layers. We all have layers.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't teach you is that the core of the onion is the strongest flavor. People don't know that. As the onion grows, it gets sweeter and duller. That
Mm-hmm.
little tiny piece inside of the middle is the strongest part of the onion. And it's like, what if people get to know that part of me? That's
Yeah, what if they
scary.
don't like that part? Okay. That's, you
Yeah.
know what, as you're talking, I was thinking, "Ah, I need to go and talk at schools and go speak at
Yeah.
schools and do
Yeah.
those classes
Mhm.
and
And
do
I
that.
think that's the thing is I want to teach women. So, you and I are working on that, and you have a thing that you're working on and teaching and collaborating. And I have my friend that I'm living with who's working to become a neurolinguistic pathologist. It's remapping how we talk to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can teach this in a simplified manner and other women teach it, we break those chains of abuse and the
Yeah.
chains of patriarchy and all kinds of things, because then they have those emotions that stand out. Oh my gosh, enlightenment. I just learned something. I got to go share with somebody. And those moments are going to stand out because they're attributed to a positive emotion and they want to share that with others. We're not pessimistic beings.
Mm-mm. And not only will they want to share it with others, they'll teach their little ones. And that'll
Yeah.
just be something that we all know. Because in the age of, I guess you can say enlightenment, but the age of technology, of science, that's when we lost our intuition. That's when we lost our dealing with the people could heal themselves with their brains, you know?
Yeah.
And when you are reliant on something, I guess you have the placebo effect, yes, but you just need to look inside
Mhm.
and start training others to look inside too. You
Yeah.
know, what are your thoughts?
I I bring okay, so there's this book. Oh my gosh, it's probably as old as I am. It's probably 30, 40 years old, but it's called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die.
Okay.
This is an amazing concept. And it was a psychologist who worked with a physician and found that every single illness, whether it be cancer or a cold or a gallbladder, is emotionally attributed and connected. And I
Oh.
was like, whatever. I'm very skeptical because I grew up with Eastern medicine. You fix the whole picture, not just pinpointing targets. But I
Mm-hmm.
read the book and I was like, okay, I'll try it. That's the only way you're going to know if it works or not. I've always had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And when I get stressed, my stomach does not like me. I can't eat. I get nauseous. I get sick. I'm in the bathroom for days. Well, what it says is that it gives you go in. So I would look up IBS and it gives you all these different emotions or things that it could be related to. Really, what it's saying is you can't digest the crap in your life, meaning you're not taking it in, you're not dealing with it, you're stifling, you're hiding, you're not working through it. And I was like, and then what you do is you take a script, however many times it takes till you get to this point of fixing it. And I'm still on it years later. And I found this when I was 16. You're just like, I forgive myself, I heal myself. I have grace that comes in and fixes it, and I will do better. And you basically are praying for yourself in a way. Every time I remember to do it, it's like you stand a little taller and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so interesting. People don't know, but in the mapping of the brain is shaped kind of like a seashell
Mm-hmm.
and it goes, outer to inner. The brain, the eyes, and the ears are right by each other in the mapping of the brain. So when you can write it down and see it and speak it and hear it, it goes right into the brain.
Mhm.
right
Right
there, or we
there.
process all of that. And what people don't know is when you're going through trauma, it forms in the back of the brain, kind of the
Mhm.
caveman brain.
Yeah.
Your brain doesn't know if you're just reliving a moment or actually going through it. But then when you go through the healing part, we go through the top down, through the emotions to the back.
Mhm.
You have to find ways to make them connect and talk to each other. And that's what I love about this book, going back to that, is that it talks to where it originated, taking that emotion and making them come together and just kind of dissipate.
That's beautiful.
So,
That's
what do you
amazing.
see? I'm curious with your clients. I know obviously you're not going to give us names and
Mhm.
confidentiality, but when you're helping women and clients, what's a common theme you see?
Lack of confidence. Not good
Yeah.
enough. Everyone feels like they're not good enough. And it could have been because mom didn't pick them up as a child, or something didn't happen that stuck in their brain. And I see it with my kids, like not that they're not going to be confident, right? I see, like, am I if I don't pick him up when he cries, is he gonna feel like he's not confident because of me when he gets older? Like, is he
Right.
gonna like think back and go, oh, it's because my mom didn't do this when I did this? So
Mm,
it's hard. Life is hard. We're all here
mhm.
for the experience. We're all here to experience life. But what happens is it's so amazing. So when you have trauma, it kind of replays back like a what do you call it? A GIF or a GIF, whatever, like a
Yeah.
couple seconds. It just goes back. You don't see the whole thing. You just see like whatever plays. So
Right.
what we could do is we kind of like grab that, we throw it out in front of them like they're watching a movie. So
Mhm.
you and I are sitting here and we're talking about this. Can you see that over there? Can you see that woman? Obviously, you're older than that woman now. Maybe that happened 10 years ago. Maybe that trauma happened when you were 10, 12, 16. You see that 16-year-old out there. What's going on? And so they'll explain to me what's going on in that situation. We want to bring in all the submodalities. Is it bright? Is it dim? Is it color? Is it black and white? Is it big? Is it small? So I can really tell that they're seeing it.
Let me get
You're
it for
good.
you.
You're good.
Okay, go ahead. I'm listening. Sorry. I
So
just don't want to have water spilled on somebody.
you're good. So as they're explaining this to me, I'm like, okay, so what's going on? That 16-year-old girl, and you're like 40 sitting here with me, and that girl 16, she's over there. What's going on with her? They'll just kind of explain the situation, what happened. Okay, so what would happen? What would feel better, to leave them in that situation or just to bring them out? So we kind of really just kind of give them a whole new memory,
Yes.
take them out of that experience. We bring them here. One person, she took her, I think she was 6 or 7, 7-year-old self out of the
Mhm.
house and sat on the grass and started looking at stars with her. Herself,
Oh,
she's here. She can see herself projecting from her age right now, taking her 7-year-old self out there and sitting and looking at the stars. Just come sit on my lap. It's a little cold. We're just going to sit here and look at the stars. And I'm like, so what resources could you give her?
yeah.
Happiness, confidence. And so we make this beautiful new memory. And then as it integrates inside, it just, as she's looking back and thinking back on the memory, the new one that we made, it's more of that than the traumatic one. And
Yeah.
so then she's her own person that rescues her. She's her own hero because she
Hmm.
did it. She rescued herself. So I see lack of confidence. I see, long story short, I see lack of confidence and not feeling good enough.
And that's almost always what it is that feeling of worth is not given the way we want. It's not that they didn't try. What's interesting, I found out in doing, I did an interesting combination of bachelor degrees of psychology with human development,
Mm-hmm.
social work side, the science side, plus the fine art side. It was kind of interesting. we love the way we want to be loved.
Yeah.
We don't love the way the people want them to be loved. It's how we want them to truly turn around and do for us. And to get outside of yourself, it almost always goes back to that feeling of worth. Somewhere it knocked you down, but it was so, excuse me, traumatizing. It stunted your growth and you got stuck and you
Yep.
held on to that and just harbored on it because you didn't have the resources, like you said, to think differently and to do differently. And you kind of have to do that self-talk to yourself as a child. I've had to do that for myself and for other women and children. And they're like, oh, I didn't even think that could be a thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Give yourself that hug, and it's like, okay, I'm okay now.
It's kind
Yeah.
of, we go through this life mindlessly,
Mm.
mindlessly. So if you read anything on Ellen Langer, her counterclockwise or the mindful body. So Ellen Langer is amazing. She talks about mindlessly and mindfully. So
Okay.
is 1 + 1 always 2? People mindlessly can go, yeah, it's always 2. Well, what about one pile of laundry plus one pile of laundry? It's
That's
still
just
one
one big
pile of
pile.
laundry. It's the
Yeah.
bigger pile of laundry. And so when you mindlessly answer something, you're not there in the moment. So when you're mindlessly driving to the grocery store, where are you? You're not in your body. Most people are not in their body. Most people, and that's where disease sets in. So if you're not in your body and you're not noticing your toes, your shins, your knees, and your whole body, then where are you? You know? What do
Yeah.
you do?
Well, and you know what? I took a course from a lady who had gone through cancer while she was going through and creating her entrepreneur program. And I was like, well, that's brave. And that's
Uh-huh.
insane. But that's actually what healed her. And it's a 19-second exercise. Can I show you? It's the
Do it.
craziest thing. So what you do is you see yourself, just kind of sit like when you feel like you're not having a good day and you're not being a good enough mom, you're gonna slump
Mm-hmm.
down a little. And she said, just what does it look like at a moment when you felt like you were confident?
Mm-hmm.
Like you are looking good with that makeup. You're
Yeah.
gonna taller, lift your chin a little higher. You're gonna imagine tilting and fixing that crown. And you just hold it for 19 seconds as you breathe and you don't move and you just soak in, what am I seeing? What am I feeling? How am I taking this in? So that every time you go through and you experience, you think chin up, and that feeling of confidence will come back the more you do it.
It will.
It
It
is,
changes your whole physiology. It changes everything.
yeah. And you're like, I didn't even realize I was slumping or slouching. And it's like, how am I showing myself to the world? Because that's how you perceive yourself, is how you carry yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really strong. And that's hard to think, oh, I haven't been doing as great. How many times do we walk by a window and we stand up straighter and we suck in that gut? And it's like, why don't we do that all the time, window or not?
Right.
We're these beautiful beings. And I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was something like, God don't make trash.
No.
You know, he thought that in all of the rocks and pebbles and bugs and leaves of this earth, he needed one of you. That's pretty miraculous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've had a
Mm.
client after the second session, she's like, I started wearing the clothes that I wore years ago, like the nice flowy dresses. And it's like, I didn't even think about it until I was getting ready to do our session, but I am acting like I used to act. And I'm like, yes, you're doing it. Stand up straight. Lift your head, your neck, lift your chin up, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I love that because I do that for women. A lot of times when they're going through a divorce, the hardest thing is they've never been away from their children until that divorce and that custody time comes in. That's hard.
That's
And I've
hard.
been, so I'm
Yeah.
like, reinvent yourself, go find yourself, make a new self that you want to be, find the hobby that you always wanted to do and somebody said you couldn't. Now's the time to do it. And as they find that, it's like this beautiful rose that blossoms into this color that you never knew existed. It's like, I like for me, this was way more than I could afford. I learned how to decorate cakes and I started my own cake company.
Hmm.
I did not know I was so bad at making fondant, but it was so fun, you
You
know?
know, your little ones can see you. They can see you. They can see that smile. They can feel the energy. Like if
Oh, yeah.
you're just so like, hmm, you know, it's
Mhm.
going to be a whole different experience for them to grow up with someone that's oh like this or someone that's like this, right?
But you can't fake it at the same time. That's a hard in between battle of, I
No.
used to think I couldn't cry until about my fourth daughter. I have five kids. My fourth daughter came along and was like, "It's okay, mom." And I was like, "What's okay?" And she would hug me and pat me. And I'm like, I need to teach her that crying, although it's not pleasant, is a human emotion just as much as happiness. And we don't
Yeah.
have to hide it. It's okay to cry. It's actually the body's way of expelling toxins. It's a healthy thing. It's okay. And then move on, you know?
Yep. Yep. Don't sit in it too long.
No, no, don't wallow,
Feel those
but
feelings. Feel them. You have to feel the feelings, all the feelings,
yeah, exactly.
and let them see it. No, I
Yeah.
agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, but I've cried. I've cried in front of my boys.
Hmm.
At first, I was like, I shouldn't be doing this, but it's not like I would cry all the time. Just, I've had my ups and downs, I've had how many relationships fail because I was too tired of trying to fix it, too tired of doing everything myself, giving all those, okay, you need to help, you need to help. Okay, I'm done. Boom. And
Yeah.
then in the boom, that's the depression, that's the sadness, that's I failed again. Like, why am I failing? And but as you're going up and down, your kids see you as long as you get up, as long as you're trying and you keep that chin up, trying to, get yourself there. That's all that matters.
And also teaching the boys that it's okay for them. I remember my son was 14 and he didn't want to go to his dad's. And at 14, I mean, this kid, this tall, skinny kid, he was on my lap and we're just rocking and he's like curled in a ball. And then he was like, okay, I'm good. Let's go to bed. It's Christmas. And that was it. He just needed that in that moment. That's okay too, to teach them to
Yeah.
be soft because they'll be more gentle as a nurturer and caregiver themselves.
Yeah. I love it.
Awesome.
I think we talked about a lot in this.
Yeah. Little heavy, but
No,
I feel like it was good. It was things that we don't ever get to like really just talk straight on about.
yeah, I think this is great. We'll have to cut it up into little ones too. And
Okay.
yeah, I love
Awesome.
it. I love it.
Okay.
So, ladies, if anyone who's listening needs any help, I'll have Jamie's information down below. You'll have my information down below. Just get a hold of us. Let us know what we can do to help.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, sounds good. Okay,
Okay.
love you.
I'll talk to you
Bye.
later. Bye, hon.